Hi, Guy Powell here, and welcome to the second half of the interview with Myra Kahn Adams. And this is Guy Powell with the backstory on the Shroud of Turin. And here we go. So, welcome back to the backstory on the Shroud of Turin. We're now going to begin the part two with Myra Adams. She is the CEO and founder of the signfromgod.org, as well as the proponent and really pushing in good measure the National Shroud of Turin exhibit, and it's National Shroud of Turin exhibit.org. So welcome back, Myra.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. There were so many good things you've got going on, and I am so impressed with everything that you do. So now you've got a temporary exhibit at the CIC, number one, and then that hopefully is going to turn into a permanent exhibit in Washington, D.C. for the of the Shroud, and it's going to be called the National Shroud of Turin exhibit. And so when people visit, when people visit the exhibit, what do you want them to come away with?
Well, first, just to explain, the Catholic Information Center is the CIC, and that's what we call our first small temporary exhibit. It's a life-size replica of the Shroud of Turin on display at the Catholic Information Center, which is a very influential organization in Washington, D.C. It's been there for about 30 years. They host all sorts of wonderful events and mass every day. And so we are honored to partner with them. And so our first exhibit is there, but it's a replica that was given to the Museum of the Bible by the authorities in Turin. And Museum of the Bible gifted it to National Shroud of Turin exhibit, and Catholic Information Center has it on display. It will be on display until right now, we know to the end of January 2024. And for those who live in the Washington, D.C. area, on July 20th in the evening between 6 and 8 p.m., we're having a wonderful event with one of our distinguished members of our National Shroud of Turin exhibit team, Dr. Cheryl White, who has been on your podcast maybe once or twice, I don't know. But anyway, she is a wonderful speaker, one of the foremost shroud experts in the world. And she's going to be speaking about the history and mystery of the Shroud of Turin at the Catholic Information Center on July 20th between 6 and 8 p.m. A reception would follow. If you live in the Washington, D.C. area or the Baltimore area and want to make it down to 1501 K Street, you just go to the CIC website, which is cicdc.org, and you can go to their events page and you'll be able to sign up for this event. It will be a wonderful event. You'll learn so much, and you'll get to meet some fascinating people who just go to regular CIC events. I'll be there, and I know Lisa Rowan will be there, who I believe has also been on your podcast. And it's going to be one of those events where you will come away learning so much. But that's really in line with the kind of things we want to do. The goal of the National Shroud of Turin exhibit is to educate people about the Shroud of Turin. And whether it's a small replica exhibit or it's going to be a big, full-blown, high-tech exhibit that will just hopefully blow people's minds away and that will remember forever, and they'll go visit back and visit often. We want people to understand what the Shroud of Turin is, why it's such a mystery, and its connection to the Gospels and the passion of Jesus Christ. But it's not going to be a quote-unquote religious exhibit. We just really want to educate people about all the fascinating aspects of the Shroud. And there are so many of them, Guy, as you know. The more you learn about the Shroud, the more you realize you don't know enough. You have to keep researching and learning because there's so many different things with the physical, the science, the Gospels, the history, the miracles. How did this thing survive? Unanswered questions that science cannot explain. There's just so much that it boggles the mind. So we want to, just try to even scratch the surface. It will take a lot of work in even a good sized museum space that we hope to have. But you can never get in everything because the vast amount of material about the Shroud just keeps growing all the time. And as you know, Guy, you've written a famous best-selling book now about it. People are fascinated by it. I believe we're in a renaissance with the Shroud. I think people right now are more interested in the Shroud than ever before.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. And some of the people that are also on your board tell me that the activity that's taking place is really just mushrooming and growing exponentially. Joe Marino has an email posting, and every one of those posts seems to have more and more and more and more stuff every week. And then, of course, Barry Schwartz with Shroud.com, he says he can barely keep up with all the new stuff that comes out. And both of those, Joe Marino and Barry Schwartz, they are really the go-to people and the go-to places. Shroud.com for Barry Schwartz. Shroud.com has everything you ever wanted to know about the Shroud, and there's so much there that you probably never be able to read it all.
You know, I call it the Library of Congress for the Shroud of Turin. That's because that's what it is. The information goes back since when Barry started. He was an internet pioneer when he started Shroud.com in I think 97, I think, right when the internet first was starting to get going. But keep in mind, STIRP had their final report in 1981. So there was a big gap of time between when Barry was involved with STIRP and then when the internet came about. But he is one of the leading experts in the world, and Shroud.com is really, as I said, it's the go-to Library of Congress, comparable to basically anything you want to know about the Shroud. Any piece of information is on there, and we just give Barry so much credit because he works so hard to make that happen. He's one of our people on our team. We have 12 people, including myself, Barry Schwartz, I said Cheryl White. Some of them have been on your podcast. Russ Brio, of course, is also very well known. And Nora Creech is also a real powerhouse. She just helped produce the National Museum of Funeral History Shroud exhibit that opened in April in Houston. If anyone lives in the Houston area, highly recommend you go there to see it. There's so much activity going on with all our Shroud members of our team. Teddy Pappas has been on your podcast before. And you can look when you go to National Shroud of Turin exhibit.org, you can click on our team and you'll see what an impressive group we have. Between the 12 of us, it's like no stone is left unturned of all the contacts and all the information and knowledge that we all as a group can bring to the National Shroud of Turin exhibit when it does get built. Right now, we need to raise a few $1 million, but I have no doubt that that's going to happen. And I know with the Lord's help, only He knows where it's going to be and when it's going to open. But I have no doubt that it will open, and it will be extremely influential and change hearts and minds in downtown DC and the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the concept of having 12 folks on your team. That number rings a bell somewhere.
That was by accident. That actually, I did not start out with that idea. It just happened. Isn't that funny?
Well,
we may increase it to 1, but I think I may have him as an advisor, someone very well known, Dr. Andrew Dalton, Father Andrew Dalton.
Yeah. He is awesome.
He's awesome.
I have heard him speak and also speak online, and he would definitely be a great person to have on your board. So. Yeah.
He may be hearing about it.
You can now you can ask him formally on the video.
No, I like him because he's so knowledgeable and he's young. And one of the things that is so important about what we want to do is to bring the information and excitement about the Shroud of Turin to the next generation. That is so important because the Shroud has all the elements that should interest younger people because it's so visual and it's mysterious and there's so much to learn and there's so much stuff that we don't even know that the future is gonna bring about. So it should be really fascinating to younger people. And I know sometimes I hear from younger people and they are fascinated by it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. There seems to be maybe now a new third generation. You think about the STIRP being kind of the first more or less modern generation, and then now you have us as maybe being the second generation, and now the younger folks underneath us that need to take up their cross, so to speak, and really try and continue to learn more and understand more about what you call the greatest mystery there ever was, and that's the
The
Shroud of
world's
Turin.
greatest mystery. That
The
we hope
world's
that
greatest
will
mystery.
be the
Yeah.
name of the National Shroud of Turin exhibit, world's greatest mystery, because that's just not us, promoting that for the fun of it. It really is the world's greatest mystery. It's the most studied artifact in the world. We know that for a fact. And the fact that science cannot figure out how it came to be, what caused the image, and all the other mysteries that are embedded in the shroud. So it continues to be the world's greatest mystery. So we feel good saying that. And I think that's also sort of a catchy title. You need catchy when you're trying to get people to come visit something.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. I think it is the world's greatest mystery, and but certainly as well. Now you're going to have your plan is to have the exhibit, the National Shroud of Turin exhibit, in Washington D.C. Why did you pick Washington? Why not somewhere else?
Well, Washington, of course, is the capital of the United States. It's the most powerful city in the United States. It's also the home of many world-class museums, of course, the Smithsonian's and several privately owned museums, including Museum of the Bible. There's so many wonderful museums in DC that are not just Smithsonian. There's so many other ones. The Spy Museum is one of them, Holocaust Museum. There's a new one called Planet Word, which is supposed to be fabulous. I've not been to it yet. It's right near where CIC is located. There's so many different museums in Washington. You haven't even heard of half of them, but it is a world-class city for museums. So that, but also it's the confluence of forces. When you have the world's most powerful city and you have the world's greatest mystery about Jesus Christ, who I believe is the Lord Jesus Christ. So you have all this power coming together, meeting each other. Washington D.C. is the perfect place to have our base, to have our Shroud of Turin exhibit. But we also hope that once we get started in D.C. and all the other things we're doing right now around the world, we're going to be at the World Youth Day, and we're going to be at the National Eucharistic Congress next year. We're going to be at the Sikh Focus Conference in January. But we also know that there's a real need to have this quality exhibit travel around the country. So that's our wider, longer term goal, is to have our flagship in DC, but to also have a traveling exhibit. And there are traveling exhibits that go around right now. Some of them are, better than others, but there's so much Shroud activity going on. And that's the greatest thing about it. The fact that there is all these museums and exhibits and talks. It just never fails. How much is going on with the Shroud? It's never been more. It's never been of greater interest to people than it is now. Now, why that is, I have my own theories, which I could talk about for days, but I'll just leave it at that. We know it is experiencing a renaissance right now of interest, and I just hope it keeps, it just keeps going.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and like I mentioned, there's no question that there's a renaissance, and there was a big dip in 1988 with the radiocarbon dating, but now that I think is totally past us, and now there are so many smart people that I've met, that I've interviewed, that I've seen their email postings and papers. There are so many people doing interesting research on the Shroud that this greatest mystery is going to continue to be a mystery, but different aspects of it are going to become more known to a lot more people, and then hopefully through the National Shroud of Turin exhibit, it will become even known to more and more people, so that next generation can hopefully even answer even more the mysteries underlying the greatest mystery.
That's right. What we also know about DC is that it attracts millions of visitors every year, not just from the United States, but visitors from all over the world. So it has the potential to really touch people from around the world, and that's why we would pick to have our exhibit as opposed to Kansas or something
Yeah.
like that. But because it's a flagship, will in fact, it will reach a lot more people being in
Yeah.
DC.
Yeah.
So
No question that
that's
with
exciting.
all of, yeah, with all of the museums in DC, all of the Smithsonian's, and then all of the private ones, the Museum of the Bible being there, and then now the National Shroud of Turin exhibit.
In the future.
The
It's not there
in
now.
the future. Yep.
Although
Well,
our first exhibit is there now at the
yeah. Well,
having
in my mind, it's already here. So.
well, you from your lips to from your mind to God's ears. I hope it does. But also another, big event's going to be happening too in 2025. Now, this has not been officially announced yet, but supposedly the shroud will go on public display in Turin in 2025. Now, whether or not that happens, that means it would have been 10 years since it was last on display in 2015. I had the opportunity to go and see it. So, but it's been 10 years, and usually, that's about the length of time, and at least in modern times, that it has had a public exposition. Now, whether or not that happens, who knows? I would imagine if it is going to happen, sometime later this year, we will be getting, an official announcement for something like that.
Yeah.
Have you heard
Well, and
anything about that, or just?
I only the rumors, and there's a lot of rumors, and the rumors are probably fueled by hope, and so we're all looking forward to it. I know that as well, for many of us Shroud authenticists, we definitely have that on our bucket list if we haven't seen it already. I've been to Turin, and actually a couple of times, but at that point I was not a Shroud enthusiast, and so now that I am, now that's my go-to thing. So definitely very excited to hopefully see it in 2025.
Well, let's hope that in fact does happen. And maybe along with that, maybe the Holy See will decide that it's time to authorize some new testing, not necessarily dating, because I think dating is kind of secondary. It's more like, let's just find out things with all the revolution in technology that has taken place since STIRP in 1978, and even with the carbon dating in 1988, there's just been a revolution in technology, and it would be so wonderful to have new technologies applied to the shroud. And they don't even have to cut little pieces to learn things these days. So there's so many things they could do without really physically cutting anything away and sending it to a lab. So we can just hope. Because I always believe in my heart of hearts that there are still mysteries, great mysteries embedded in the shroud that we don't have the technology yet to know about. And the two great examples of that were when the camera came about and photography became available, and the shroud was photographed for the first time. The world learned an amazing fact that the shroud itself was a negative, and that it develops as a positive. And so that came out, and that was kind of mind-blowing. The Vatican didn't even know what to do with that information. They kind of just pushed it aside and didn't allow the shroud to be photographed again until 1931. And the same result happened. I always say, good thing Secondo Pio was alive at that time. He was vindicated. But that technology obviously furthered the shroud. And then, of course, in the 70s, when the VPA analyzer came about, and they discovered that the shroud had 3D information. So 2D cloth had 3D distance information. And you just wonder, okay, what else is in there that, we're waiting for technology to help discover? Because I have no doubt we have yet to find out everything about what's in that shroud.
Yeah, and
That makes it exciting, really, even more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's then why the next generation has to get involved and learn more and be educated, by the National Shroud of Turin exhibit and Sign from God, and all of the good things that you and so many other folks are doing. So tell us about Sign from God, and we'll go from there.
Well, Sign from God was our 501c3. National Shroud of Turin exhibit is a project of Sign from God. Sign from God was formed at the end of 2017 to really educate people about the Shroud of Turin. And the name was divinely inspired. I think the logo was absolutely beautiful. And forming Sign from God, the first mission that came about was to have the Museum of the Bible host an exhibit about the shroud. And so that we didn't know that at the time, but that again was a confluence of events. The museum opened in November of 2017, just around the same time we started Sign from God. And the two events just kind of meshed together in this most amazing way. When I went there to the opening event, the weekend of November 2017, when it first opened, when the Museum of the Bible first opened, and there was nothing about the Shroud. The Shroud did not exist at the Bible. And that really, kind of bothered me. So I started my crusade to try to make that, try to have something at the Museum of the Bible about the Shroud. And ultimately that took many years and a COVID epidemic in the middle of it. It opened a year late, but it did open in February 26, 2022. And it was open until the end of July, as 2022, as was planned. But in the meantime, they had 80,000 people through there. It was their most popular exhibit they'd ever had. They didn't have any advertising or marketing. People just came. And that just proved to us that there was a need for a permanent Shroud exhibit in Washington, D.C. Because as you know, Museum of the Bible is not exactly on the beaten path. It's a little bit off the beaten path. It's right near the Capitol, but it's just kind of a little bit off the beaten path. But National Shroud of Turin exhibit, we hope to have it right downtown, around 15th and K, where the Catholic Information Center is right now. This would be just a couple blocks house. So that's our goal, is to have this permanent exhibit, not one that's just going to be temporary, and that will be there forever and change hearts and minds of people of the world. Not, just a small goal we have, just a little mission.
That's right. Well, if you don't have big goals, then you can't accomplish big things. Yeah.
Well, with that in mind, I'm looking at my favorite Bible verse that I literally have it taped to my computer. It's from Jeremiah 32:27, and it says, "I am the Lord, the God of all mankind. Is anything too hard for me?" I love that. I love that verse. And I look at it all the time and I think, I can't believe, what I have to do today. I hope things happen the way they're supposed to happen. Whenever you get down about, things in life. And I look at that, and every time I look at that verse, it's at my eye level. Every time I look at it, I get uplifted, because it's true. Nothing is too hard for the Lord our God. Nothing is too hard for Jesus Christ. If he wants something to happen, it's going to happen, especially something that I believe glorifies him. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will happen.
And I think you are so right. And I think the 80,000 visitors that the Museum of the Bible had, you're going to surpass that easily once the full exhibit is up, number one, and then number two is once you start to advertise and let people know it's there, and if it's on not off the beaten track, but very close to the White House or wherever it is going to end up in DC, you will get a lot of both U.S. visitors and international visitors. That is the center, in my mind, of all U.S. tourism, whether it's domestic or international.
That's very true. Now, all we need is we have to finish our business plan, and then we hope to present it to some people who might want to write us some very large checks. So at least can contract for some space and start building this exhibit. Our group of 12 people, that is the team of National Shroud of Turin exhibit, we have all the knowledge that we need to produce an amazing exhibit. All we need now is some financial backers. And again, I just think the Lord's going to send those also. So anyone that wants to donate to or learn more about what we're doing, you can go to nationalshroudofturinexhibit.org. And you can contact me. My contact information is on there. Go to signfromgod.org. And that again will bring you to National Shroud of Turin exhibit.org also. So anyway, we'll just see what happens. But Guy, I just can't thank you enough for helping us tell our story. And but the more we talk about the Shroud, the more interested people are in what you do and your book and your podcast. So we're really all on the same team.
Yep, we definitely are, and I'm so glad you brought up the link to contribute, because any initiative requires both big donors and small donors, and whether you're big, small, medium, large, whatever you are, definitely please go to nationalshroudofturinexhibit.org and contribute what you feel is best to support this incredible worthy cause on the greatest mystery of the world. So with that, Myra, thank you so much. We're going to close it there. and go from there. Remember, this is the part 2. If you missed part 1, please go back and you'll be able to see that as well, and then learn more about the National Shroud of Turin exhibit.org and signfromgod.org, and then what we and what Myra in particular is really trying to do to bring the shroud and educate the people, both domestic visitors and international visitors, and about what the Shroud of Turin really is. Myra, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. God bless you.
Absolutely. Thank you, and bless you as well.